It's a strange place to be when technically you've died 3 times and returned with only 1% chance of survival.
Jim Lee has been taking photographs for 50 years. He's best known for his iconic fashion images from the 1960s and 70s when he worked with the likes of Yves Saint Laurent and Gianni Versace, not to mention photographing bands including the Beatles and the Rolling Stones.
Jim was a sort of missing link between the work of the 60s and that of the 70s. His strength is using colour and movement in a very powerful way. There's always a supercharging narrative in his work. It's highly theatrical and very gripping.
Swish through all the things in any shiny magazine, the 60 pages or so of luxury brand ads, you'll see a lot of knockoffs of Jim's work.
My father was in the spy business, which I didn't know until many years later, and I grew up in a slightly stifling atmosphere of privilege and secrecy. My only escape was visiting an old man called Albert, who lived very simply. I think that's why in later life I bought a showman's caravan. My other escape was playing cowboys and Indians.
This offer that was intended for kids from the slums who wanted to better themselves. He did all these picaresque things that people do. Drove one of those great trucks across the Red Desert with an Aborigine. By night, he was getting into Sydney's Bohemia.
You very quickly become one of the photographers with a particular eye. There's a sense of a story. There's a sense of something has just happened or might be about to happen, even in what you might think is a fashion shoot, you know.
I met Anna Wintour when she was 19 or 20, I think. She was the assistant fashion editor at Harper's and Queen. Anna tugged at my shirt sleeve one day and said, would you like to sew with me? Because I do the occasional job. We ended up doing loads of work. And when she wasn't given the opportunity to take over at Harper's and Queen, Anna stormed off to New York. And at that time, actually, I went off too. And that's where I did the big boxing series in New York with her. Directing TV ads in the 80s was quite a different experience than it is now. There was big budgets and the creatives had tremendous control. In those days, we did some extraordinary things. I mean, I painted 5 40-ton juggernauts black and put mirrored windscreens in it so that it looked great for a Royal Mail advert. The extravagance was, and the humour and the kind of the creativity was allowed to flow. And of course, I did the great British Airways commercial, the privatisation, which everybody seems to know so much about, except that they talk more about White Horse Whiskey because that's the one that ran for years and years of the 5 white horses and the Command. It was Tony Scott who told me that your second film was your hardest, and the first film was hard enough, but getting it up was sort of like 3 months, then you're off and making it in a flash. The second film wasn't so easy, and of course life was very complicated at that point. I went through a divorce, I had health issues, had a couple of accidents and so on, so it made life difficult. The most tragic event of death that I've encountered is the loss of my son. But my photography has been influenced, and my film perhaps even more, because the film I did, Losing Track, there was a scene in it where a young boy had to go to his mother's funeral, and I put the scene in that film almost replicating what I had to go through when I buried my own son. But it was very cathartic, and it helped. At this point, I feel that every day that I have is a day extra. I mean, the photos I've shot, let's say, since I've died, have been ones which I feel are more the outrageous statements I still have to make. The one picture which I wanted to do was quite a hairy thing for a photographer or a filmmaker or a visual person to worry about, is that what happens if you lose your sight? And I believe that if I lost it now, I'm versed enough to be able to go on taking pictures because I know what it looks like in my mind. So I did a picture of a blind man taking a picture of a beautiful girl with her dress billowing in the wind and the sun. called Blind Man Seeing, which is a very personal take on what I feel about the idea of being blinded.